In this video, we'll uncover the dark and unsettling roles various animals have played throughout history. Some are familiar, like dogs or horses, but there are other animals whose exploitation has been deeply troubling and not as widely recognized. Throughout history, humans have always sought ways to turn everything around them to their advantage, including other species. Realizing that many species, especially animals, but even insects, possess abilities we lack, we started looking for ways to compensate for our shortcomings by utilizing their various capabilities. On this list, you'll see some of the most unusual ways animals have been used, which I believe you haven't heard about. We'll start with elephants. Personally, I wasn't aware of some of their roles, nor that elephants were actually used throughout history to a much greater extent than we think. What better way to utilize the size, strength, and even intelligence of these amazing beings than for destroying your enemies, right? Thus, war elephants were one of the most terrifying sights, especially for foreign armies encountering these creatures for the first time, and especially under those circumstances when they had armor, blades, archers, and spear throwers on them, trampling everything in their path in the chaos of battle. For centuries, elephants were used literally as tanks in battles. Armies of India and Southeast Asia used these fascinating animals as war machines. Although their size and strength created chaos and fear in battles, unfortunately, they often ended up with serious injuries or even death, as they were the biggest and usually the first and most important target for enemy soldiers. Not to mention the stress and fear these highly intelligent animals experienced in those extremely unnatural circumstances. Excluding battles and their role as tanks, elephants, like horses, were used for demanding physical work. Being extremely physically capable but also intelligent, they were used in logging and transporting large and heavy amounts of wood in inaccessible conditions. And in some countries, they are even used today, where machines cannot reach or in less developed countries. However, besides these two already terrible roles, there is another little-known, outright terrifying role this animal was forced into. That is execution by elephant. An old and severe method also seen as a display of absolute power, where individuals were sentenced for various reasons in a unique manner. These elephants were trained to intimidate their victims, showcasing their strength and size, until the point when the sentence was ultimately carried out, concluding with the significant force of their weight. This method was brutal both for its victims and observers, as well as for the elephants who were forced to do it because these beings are extremely intelligent and are believed to have a remarkable memory and conscience. So forcing elephants to perform such acts is extremely harmful to their psyche. Besides that, they were used until relatively recently in circuses as entertainment for people, performing various tricks and performances for our amusement. The reality is that many of these animals are in terrible conditions, chained with poor treatment and diet, that there are organizations that try in every way to stop their use for such a cruel form of entertainment. In addition, there are zoos, many of which do not have adequate conditions for the normal life of these gentle giants. Let's hope that animal protection organizations will continue their work to improve conditions for elephants in modern times. The next animal that everyone knows is the rat, mostly seen only as a pest, but the various roles they have been used in you probably don't know. Like elephants, rats have had some brutally horrifying roles that you weren't aware of, which we will now tell you. The most common role rats have played is in scientific experiments. They've been crucial in medical breakthroughs, from understanding diseases to testing new medicines. Unfortunately, many of these experiments involve procedures that can cause pain and suffering to the rats, raising significant ethical concerns about their treatment and welfare. But there's one particularly dark role for rats I'm sure you've never heard of. In medieval times and even more recently, rats were utilized in severe interrogation techniques, let's say it that way. To ensure this video isn't restricted, we can't describe the technique in detail, but it roughly looked like this. The individual selected for this method was placed on a table, and a cage with an open bottom, containing a rat, was placed on their chest. The rat was then exposed to a strong heat source, which would compel it to use its gnawing abilities to find a way out. I think you get the idea. This technique just goes to show how creative people can be, especially for such horrifying things. On a more positive note, rats have been trained to detect landmines and unexploded ordnance. Their keen sense of smell and light weight make them excellent at safely identifying explosives without triggering them. This role has saved countless lives and demonstrates a remarkable use of rats' natural abilities for humanitarian purposes. Although not a role assigned by humans, rats have played a part in managing waste. In cities and towns throughout history, rats have scavenged human waste, consuming and reducing the amount of litter. While this contributes to hygiene issues and the spread of diseases, it also highlights the ecological role rats play in urban environments. Rats have also influenced art and culture. In many cultures, rats are symbols in mythology and folklore, representing various traits from cleverness to filth. Their depiction in literature and art reflects the complex and often contradictory views humans hold about rats. Contrary to their often negative image, rats have been kept as pets, appreciated for their intelligence and sociability. Pet rats are known for their ability to form bonds with their human caretakers. In some cultures, rats are even considered a food source, yet shockingly to some. However, rats have contributed to human life in many ways, often at great cost to themselves. Dogs, often celebrated as man's best friend, have roles in our lives that stretch far beyond companionship. While they bring joy and loyalty, their journey alongside humans also has darker chapters, revealing the complex and sometimes unsettling ways we've interacted with these faithful animals. Perhaps one of the most infamous examples of dogs used in science is the work of Pavlov in the early 20th century. Pavlov's experiments on dogs, studying their reflexes by conditioning them to respond to stimuli such as bells, were groundbreaking in psychology and physiology. However, these experiments also raise ethical questions about the use of animals in research, especially considering the distress and discomfort experienced by these dogs. During World War II, dogs were trained by the Soviet Army to act as anti-tank weapons. These dog bombs were taught to carry explosives under tanks, where the bomb would detonate. This practice not only exploited the dog's loyalty and trainability, but also led to tragic outcomes for these animals, which were forced into a human's war to die for them. Also, this method was largely unsuccessful because poor dogs got scared by the chaos of battle and often returned to their handlers with explosives around them, only to be shot to prevent them blowing up their soldiers along with them. In some cultures, dogs are also considered a source of food. This practice, while shocking to many, is a part of tradition and survival in certain regions. Dogs have been used in hunting due to their keen senses and agility. Beyond hunting for sustenance, dogs have also been used in blood sports, such as dogfighting, a cruel and illegal activity that still occurs today. These fights subject dogs to extreme violence, suffering, and often death, all for human entertainment. Throughout history, dogs have served as guards, protecting homes and properties. They've also been soldiers on battlefields, used for their skills in tracking, scouting, and even attacking enemy lines. While these roles utilize the protective and loyal nature of dogs, they also expose them to danger and stress. On a more positive note, dogs have been heroic in rescue missions, finding and saving lives during disasters. They also serve as assistance animals, helping individuals with disabilities navigate daily life. These roles demonstrate the incredible bond and mutual benefit of the human-dog relationship. In this video, we've seen the many ways animals have been part of human stories, from helping us in wars to being part of our experiments. While some of these roles show how clever and strong animals can be, others remind us we must always think about how we treat them. Animals, big and small, have shared our world and helped us in many ways, often without choice. Let's remember to treat them with kindness and respect, making sure their stories with us are as good as they can be.